They kicked me out of the family meeting laughing like I didn't matter. What they didn't know was that I owned the $900 million company running their lives. The old mahogany table gleamed under the chandelier, but all I could see were their faces, calm, polished, and cold. My father sat at the head of the table like a judge, my mother beside him, hands folded neatly. My brother Daniel leaned back in his chair, smirking. My younger sister, Lily, scrolled through her phone like she couldn't care less. It wasn't a family meeting, it was a trial. And I was the defendant, I think. I began carefully. If we invest in a digital marketing branch, Daniel cut me off, his voice sharp. We've already discussed that. You wouldn't understand how to manage numbers that big. My words froze in my throat. I glanced at my father. He didn't even look up. I tried again. I'm not talking about handling funds. I'm saying the outreach enough. His tone cracked through the room like a whip. You've said your piece. We'll handle it. My heart thudded. Handle it? He hadn't listened to a word. My mother avoided my eyes, pretending to adjust her scarf. For a few seconds, the only sound was the tick of the antique clock on the wall. Then Daniel laughed softly. She's still trying to sound like she matters. Something inside me shifted. A familiar ache, the kind you get when you realize this pain isn't new. It's recycled. It's history repeating itself. I do matter, I whispered, barely audible, but they heard. And the silence that followed was worse than any insult. Father exhaled heavily and leaned forward, the scent of black coffee on his breath. You're overreacting again. This isn't about you. You're emotional. That's why business isn't your thing. There it was, the old line. The dagger disguised as advice. I clenched my fists under the table. Emotional? You mean human? Daniel chuckled. Human, sure. Useful? Not really. My mother flinched but said nothing. Always nothing. The tension in the room thickened until it felt like breathing through smoke. I swallowed hard, forcing myself to stay composed. You know what? I said, standing. My chair scraped against the marble floor, the sound harsh and final. Maybe you're right. Maybe I don't belong here. My father didn't stop me. Neither did my mother. As I turned toward the door, Daniel called out, finally, some sense. Don't let the door hit you, sis. Their laughter followed me out like knives. Outside, the evening air was cold, sharp against my skin. I stood on the porch, staring at the grand gates of the house I helped maintain with money they never knew I had. Every sacrifice I'd made, the late nights, the canceled vacations, the bills I secretly paid, meant nothing. They saw me as decoration in their perfect family portrait. I walked down the driveway, each step heavier than the last. My hands trembled, not from sadness, but from something deeper. A silent rage simmering beneath every scar they'd given me. By the time I reached my car, my eyes had dried. The ache was gone, replaced by something far more dangerous. Clarity. I didn't need their approval. I didn't need their table. I'd build my own. As I started the engine, my phone buzzed on the passenger seat. I almost ignored it until I saw the notification. Board meeting scheduled, Elysium Holdings, 8 p.m. My lips curved into a small, quiet smile. They thought they'd silence me, but they had no idea the storm they'd just created. As I shut the door behind me, my phone buzzes, a notification from a board meeting they know nothing about. They thought I was weak because I stayed quiet, not realizing silence was my sharpest weapon. When I walked into my apartment that night, the silence wrapped around me like an old friend. I dropped my keys onto the glass table and just stood there for a second, staring at my reflection in the dark window. My eyes were swollen, but not from tears, from restraint. Every word I hadn't said at that meeting sat in my throat like ash. The air felt cold, dry, like the universe itself was holding its breath. I took off my coat, hung it neatly, and laughed under my breath. They really think I'm nothing. Daniel's words echoed. She's still trying to sound like she matters. If only he knew how many nights I'd spent building something that mattered more than anything he'd ever touched. I walked toward my office, small, minimalist, quiet, the one place that had never betrayed me. The faint hum of my computer greeted me as I sat down, fingers hovering over the keyboard. One click, and the dark screen came alive with the dashboard of Elysium Holdings, rows of numbers, graphs glowing green. A quiet empire built brick by digital brick. They never knew. They never even asked. While they were busy competing for my father's approval, I was competing with global giants and winning. I remembered those nights, half asleep at my desk, ramen noodles on one side, spreadsheets on the other. No fancy office, no inheritance, just raw stubbornness and a fire that wouldn't die. My parents were traveling back then. "You'll manage the house, won't you?" they'd say, before flying off. I always did. I cooked, paid bills, helped Lily through college applications. Every time we ran out of grocery money, I pulled from my savings. They called it helping. I called it surviving. I still remember Dad's voice when I said I wanted to study finance. "Finance? That's not for women. You're too emotional." Maybe he was right. Emotion was my fuel. It burned hot enough to forge an empire in silence. My phone buzzed. A message from Olivia, my CFO. "Olivia, just a heads up. Another local firm applied for partnership. Greenstone Enterprises. Looks small but persistent. Should we review?" My heart skipped once. Greenstone Enterprises. That was Daniel's company. The same Daniel who told me I was useless. I stared at the message, a smile tugging at my lips. The irony was delicious, poetic even. I typed back, "Me. Approve initial review. No decision yet. I want to see their full proposal first." Olivia replied with a thumbs up emoji, unaware of the story behind that simple instruction. Leaning back in my chair, I let the quiet hum of the city seep through the windows. Somewhere out there, my family was probably having dinner, laughing, toasting to future success. They had no idea their future sat right here. In my laptop, in my hands, I owned their company's profile on our system. Their numbers weren't bad, but their cash flow was bleeding. They needed funding, my funding. Without realizing it, they were about to walk straight into my boardroom, asking for help from the very person they threw out of theirs. The thought made me pause. Not out of cruelty, but out of something heavier. Justice. Part of me wanted to reject them immediately, watch them crumble. But another part wanted to wait, to let them come to me, proud and desperate, not knowing they were stepping right into my world. I glanced at the clock. Midnight. The city lights shimmered below like restless stars. I closed the dashboard, the Elysium logo fading from the screen. The glow dimmed, but inside me, a different light stayed alive. Calm, deliberate, and deadly. They thought I was silent because I had nothing to say. They'd soon learn I'd been quiet because I was planning every word. I opened my company's dashboard and smiled. Their small family firm had just applied for a partnership with us. Blood means nothing when loyalty runs dry. I used to think family was supposed to be safe, that when the world clawed at you, home was where you could breathe. But for me, it was a stage, and I was the background actor in their perfect little play. I remember being 8, standing in the corner while my father clapped for my brother just for tying his shoes right. "That's my boy," he'd say, loud enough for the neighbors to hear. My mother's laugh followed, brittle and bright, as if every sound in that house had to be rehearsed. No one ever looked at me unless something needed fixing. A missing report, a broken appliance, a lie that needed covering. I was the family's quiet glue, invisible until they needed to stick something back together. "Let your brother rest. Can't you see he's tired?" My mother would snap. "I finished all the chores already," I'd mutter. She'd smile then, the kind that cuts deeper than any shout. "That's what good kids do, sweetheart. You don't complain." But my brother? He could burn the house down, and she'd hand him the match again. The memory smells like old detergent and burnt rice. My mother's cooking, my father's silence. Even now, decades later, I can still hear the soft hum of that ceiling fan that never stopped turning, just like their favoritism. Slow, constant, suffocating. The bracelet sits in my drawer. Silver, cracked in the middle, a faint dent from when it hit the floor that night. It was supposed to be our family heirloom. My grandmother's passed down to my mother, then to me because you're the responsible one. But responsibility, in our house, was just another word for servitude. When it snapped, something in me did too. "Don't cry over things, darling," my father had said when he saw the broken bracelet. "It's just metal." But it wasn't. It was the last lie holding us together. Now, years later, the house feels smaller when I visit. My brother still lives there, jobless, drunk most nights. My mother's eyes dart away when I enter a room. My father pretends age has softened him, but the sharpness still hides behind his smiles. They think I've forgiven them. That distance erased the damage, but forgiveness is just another mask. And I've learned how to wear one too. "Sweetheart," my mother's voice trembles on the phone, too sweet, too careful. "We were thinking, maybe you could come over for dinner this weekend? Just family. We want to talk, clear things up, clear things up." The same words they used after every lie, every bruise they pretended not to see, every betrayal they justified. I let silence fill the line, just long enough for her to start fidgeting on the other end. Then I say, calmly, "Sure, Mom, I'll be there." Outside my window, rain starts falling sharp, rhythmic, steady. The kind of rain that feels like it's washing something away. But inside, my chest burns. The drawer is still open, and the broken bracelet catches the light for a second before I close it again. It glints like a warning. They don't realize I've been studying them, their tells, their patterns, their greed. I know when my father's about to lie. His jaw twitches. I know when my mother's nervous. She fixes her hair even when there's no mirror. And my brother, he laughs too loud when he's hiding something. They taught me to notice everything. That's how they'll destroy themselves. When the invitation arrived, written in my mother's neat, shaking handwriting, "We want to apologize over dinner," I laughed so hard my chest hurt. Because for the first time, I realized they'd invited the wrong person. Apologies mean nothing when they're just another manipulation. The restaurant smelled like expensive wine and insincerity, polished silverware, slow jazz, and the quiet hum of conversations that pretended to be civilized. It was the kind of place my family loved. A setting where reputation mattered more than truth. I sat across from my father, who had chosen the head of the table, as always. His posture hadn't changed, spine straight, hands folded, smile too wide. My mother's eyes darted between us like she was waiting for an explosion. Daniel, my brother, kept his gaze glued to the glass of whiskey in front of him. They'd all aged, but not enough to forget how to perform. My mother started first. "It's been too long, sweetheart. You look successful." Her voice trembled between warmth and calculation. "I try," I said, keeping my tone flat. My father chuckled, deep and rehearsed. "We're proud of you. You've done well for yourself. Heard your company's been growing fast." I nodded. "We've had some good years." He leaned back, eyes scanning me like an investment he was reconsidering. "That's wonderful. You know, we were just talking about how families should stick together. The world's tough out there. Hard to know who to trust." His words were honeyed, but his knuckles were white against the tablecloth. The light above us flickered soft amber, warm, deceptive. The kind of light that made lies look beautiful. The air smelled of rosemary steak and cheap forgiveness. My bracelet, the cracked one I'd brought out of habit, rested cold against my wrist, its weight grounding me. I didn't believe a word of their performance. The "we miss you" s, the "we didn't mean to hurt you" s, all mask stitched from guilt and greed. I'd lived under those smiles my entire childhood. They weren't here to apologize. They were here to ask. My father cleared his throat. "Listen, we know things weren't perfect before. We said things we didn't mean. You did things you didn't mean too," I said softly. He hesitated just for a second, then laughed. "Well, yes, but that's in the past, isn't it? We're family. We shouldn't hold grudges." My mother reached for my hand, her touch too light, like she was afraid of breaking the illusion. "Your brother's been going through a rough time. We're trying to help him get back on his feet." Daniel smirked faintly. "I'm fine, Mom," but the twitch in his jaw said otherwise. I watched them play their roles, one line at a time. I could almost hear the unspoken script beneath their words. "We need something. Don't leave before we ask." The sound of my fork against the porcelain plate felt too loud. I could hear every clink, every shallow breath my mother took. Somewhere near the bar, someone laughed, sharp, genuine, foreign to this table. Under the table, my phone vibrated. Once, then again. I glanced down, a message from my assistant. "Partnership proposal from L&F Holdings has reached your approval desk. Need your signature before noon tomorrow." L&F Holdings, my father's company. I almost smiled. The timing was poetic. I could have told them right there. Watch their faces crack, the masks crumble. But revenge, real revenge, isn't loud. It's patient. It's earned. I lifted my wine glass instead, swirling the crimson liquid until it caught the light like blood in motion. "Power tastes like this, quiet, controlled, dangerous." "So," I said, keeping my voice calm, "what's this really about?" My father's grin faltered for half a second, the mask slipping. "Can't we just have dinner without an agenda?" "Sure," I replied, "but we've never been that kind of family, have we?" My brother finally looked up. "Dad, just tell him." My mother flinched. "Daniel." "No," he snapped, frustration leaking through. "He's not stupid. He knows why we're here." My father's smile returned, but his eyes hardened. Fine, we need your help, son. There's an investor we're trying to bring on board. Big deal, long-term opportunity. Her name is Evelyn Shaw. He leaned forward, elbows on the table, voice dipping low like he was sharing state secrets. We need you to reach out to her. A personal favor. You've got connections. The name echoed in the air like a warning bell. My pulse didn't spike. My breathing didn't change. I'd rehearsed this moment in my head too many times for that. The only movement was the faintest curl of my lips. Evelyn Shaw. I remembered the late nights, the endless paperwork, the sleepless months building my startup from nothing. When I'd chosen that name, Evelyn Shaw, a blend of anonymity and armor. My middle name and my mother's maiden name. A ghost identity that no one could trace. Until now. They were sitting across from me, begging for help from the very person they used to ignore, and they didn't even know it. The rain outside began to pour harder, rattling the windows. My father's reflection in the glass shimmered, distorted by water like the illusion he'd built all his life. I placed my wine glass down, smiled faintly, and met his gaze. Tell me more about Evelyn Shaw, I said. They wanted to impress my alter ego. They had no idea. They were already begging me. The name Evelyn Shaw still feels strange on my tongue sometimes, like wearing a perfectly tailored mask. Behind that name, I built everything they once said I'd never be capable of. Behind that name, I learned that silence could be more powerful than screaming. My office window reflected my face over the city skyline. Both women staring back, the one they betrayed and the one who would make them kneel. The hum of the air conditioner, the soft tick of a luxury watch, the faint citrus scent of polish. It all felt sterile, precise, controlled. Just how Evelyn Shaw liked it. Bring me the file, I told my assistant Julia, my voice calm as glass. She entered, heels clicking like a metronome. The family business proposal, ma'am. They sent over the final draft this morning. I reached for it slowly, almost ceremonially. The folder bore my father's company logo, 3 fading initials embossed in silver. My name used to be one of them. I flipped the first page. Their tone was nauseatingly self-congratulatory. We've always valued integrity, loyalty, and family above all. My lips curled. Integrity? I whispered, tracing the sentence with my finger. Loyalty? The word burned. Julia hesitated. Should I continue summarizing, or read it? I said. Let's hear how much fiction they've managed to package as business, she began, her voice crisp and detached. But I wasn't listening to the words anymore. I was watching the reflection in my glass wall. My own reflection. Evelyn Shaw's stillness. My father's words echoed faintly from years ago. You'll never make it without us. Now they wanted us, and they've positioned themselves as pioneers in sustainable packaging. Julia continued. I blinked, focusing again. Pioneers? They dumped plastic waste behind the factory for a decade. She paused. Would you like me to flag that? No. Smiled faintly. Let them brag. It makes the fall more dramatic. Julia smirked slightly. She'd seen glimpses of the darkness beneath my calm exterior. Understood. I leaned back in my chair, fingertips resting against the cold glass table. Prepare a response. Elysium Holdings will conduct preliminary meetings anonymously. No direct exposure to Evelyn Shaw. Her brows lifted. So you want to keep the mystery? Exactly. My tone softened, silk over steel. People show their truest selves when they think no one important is watching. The next few hours blurred into quiet efficiency. My voice was steady in calls, my expressions measured. Yet beneath it all, my pulse carried a quiet rhythm of satisfaction. They were coming to me, begging the very ghost they once dismissed. When Julia returned, she placed her tablet on the desk. They've attached a personal letter from Miss Shaw, she said. From your father. My throat tightened. I didn't move for a moment. Read it, I ordered softly. She began. Dear Miss Shaw, we've admired your company's reputation and values. We would be honored to work with someone who believes in integrity and family unity. The words scraped like sandpaper, each phrase a mockery. I could almost hear his voice saying them, warm and false. My eyes flicked to the glass again, 2 faces looking back at me now. The obedient daughter long buried, and the woman made from her ashes. I watched as sunlight hit the glass, dividing my reflection cleanly in half. Reply, I said finally. Professional tone, courteous, non-committal. And Julia, yes, ma'am. If he mentions integrity again, underline it in red. She smiled faintly. Noted. When she left, The silence in the office felt deliberate, like the calm before thunder. I turned back to the city. The buildings shimmered in the afternoon light, glass catching the sun like fire. Somewhere out there, my family was probably rehearsing how to impress the mysterious investor. They had no idea. The investor already knew every lie in their pitch. They had no idea their redemption dinner had been their final audition. I reached into the drawer and pulled out the old bracelet. One broken link still dangled loosely, catching a fragment of light. It had once meant belonging. Now it was my quiet reminder of promises snapped in two. My phone buzzed, breaking the silence. Julia's name lit the screen. Text: "They've agreed to meet Evelyn Shaw next week. Should I confirm your attendance?" I smiled into my reflection. Even the glass seemed to grin back. Sometimes, to face the past, you have to wear a stranger's mask. The elevator doors opened with a soft hiss, releasing a faint scent of coffee and polished wood. My reflection in the mirrored walls looked flawless: smooth hair, sharp suit, controlled smile. But my palms told the truth. They trembled just enough to betray the storm underneath. Evelyn Shaw doesn't shake. I reminded myself, inhaling slow, measured air. When the glass-walled conference room came into view, my pulse tripped. They were already there: my father, my mother, and Daniel, my family, my ghosts. Through the transparent wall, I could see them rehearsing their smiles. My father fidgeted with his cufflinks. Daniel leaned back in his chair, legs crossed, arrogance practically humming off him. My mother, she looked smaller than I remembered, paler. Her hands clutched her purse like a shield. I adjusted my collar, squared my shoulders, and walked in. "Good afternoon," I said. My voice came out low, even, professional, not mine. My father stood first, extending a hand. "Miss Shaw, we've heard excellent things about your firm." "It's an honor." His grip was firm but damp. That used to embarrass me as a kid, his nervous sweat before every board meeting. Now, it amused me. "The honor's mine, Mr. Hayes," I said smoothly. "I've reviewed your proposal." He nodded, swallowing. We've worked very hard. Family values, legacy. Those mean everything to us. Family values. The phrase stabbed, but I kept my smile. Daniel leaned forward, eyes glinting. "We've built this company from the ground up. We just need the right investors to see the potential. I'm confident you'll find us worth your time." I tilted my head. "Confidence is good, Mr. Hayes. Arrogance, less so." He froze, then forced a laugh. "Right, of course." Their assistant, a woman in her 40s, handed me a glossy folder. The paper smelled of fresh ink and desperation. I flipped through the slides while my reflection shifted faintly in the glass wall behind them, three distorted silhouettes from my past watching me study their future. "Your financials are impressive," I said, "though there's one inconsistency in the sustainability report." My father frowned. "Is there?" "Yes," I replied softly. "The environmental audit from last quarter. The numbers don't align." He blinked rapidly. "Oh, that must be a clerical issue. Daniel, you handled that section, didn't you?" Daniel's jaw tightened. "Minor reporting delay. Nothing serious." My gaze lingered on him, just long enough to make him squirm. "Delays often reveal more than they hide, Mr. Hayes." The silence that followed was thick, just the hum of the AC and the faint tap of my pen against the table. My heartbeat echoed in the glass. My mother finally spoke. Her voice was fragile, like tissue paper. "Miss Shaw, we truly appreciate your time. My husband can be overly cautious, but her eyes caught mine. Something flickered there. Recognition? A ghost of a memory? I looked away before it could root. "Please continue." Inside, I was splitting in two. Every word I said was measured, professional. Every breath I took was loaded with memory. My father's lectures. Daniel's laughter when they locked me out of the office years ago. My mother's silence when I begged for help. Now, they hung on my every nod, every flicker of expression. Completely unaware that the woman in front of them was the daughter they erased, Daniel leaned closer, voice lower now. "If you're worried about risk, Miss Shaw, you can trust we've got everything under control. We've restructured management." My father's stepping back. "I'll be running day to day." I smiled faintly. "That must be reassuring." His grin widened, eager to impress. "You could say that. I've always been the one with the drive," my inner voice hissed, "and the ego. And the cruelty." He slid a glossy document toward me. "Projected growth model. I'd love your feedback." I accepted it without breaking eye contact. "I'm sure you would." The way his smile faltered almost made me laugh. Almost. Halfway through the meeting, my bracelet caught the light, a different one now, silver, unbroken. The faint glint reflected in the glass, right beside my father's reflection. For a second, it looked like his own cufflink was shattering. I stared at that illusion until it disappeared. When the meeting finally wrapped, my father exhaled loudly. "Thank you again, Miss Shaw. I truly believe this partnership could mean something lasting." I rose from my chair, extending my hand. "So do I." He shook it, his fingers cold. My mother followed suit, her touch trembling. "And then, Miss Shaw," she said softly, Have we met before? You seem familiar." I blinked once, slow. "I get that often." Her smile faltered, but she nodded. "Of course." As they gathered their things, I felt a pulse of air conditioning sweep through the room, cool against my neck, sharp as memory. The sound of Daniel's watch ticking filled the silence. "Send us your decision soon," my father said, shaking my hand one last time. "I will," I replied. "And thank you for your honesty today." He smiled, oblivious. "Always." I held his gaze, steady. "That's good to hear." They left. The door clicked shut behind them. For a full minute, I stood in silence, watching their reflections fade into the glass walls. My pulse slowed, my breath steady again. Then came the faint echo of their voices through the corridor. Daniel's tone was smug. Evelyn's easy to manipulate. She'll say yes. He had no idea I was standing just around the corner. No idea I heard everything. I didn't want revenge, but they taught me to stop forgiving. The city outside my office looks almost peaceful, lights blinking like nothing's wrong. But I know better. Every smile in that family meeting, every polite word, was just camouflage for betrayal. I lean against the glass wall, the skyline reflected across my face. For a long time, I just breathe. I tell myself I'm not doing this for revenge. I'm doing this to restore balance, to show them what it feels like when truth walks in uninvited. My fingers trace the bracelet around my wrist, the one my mother gave me when I turned 18. The silver's cracked now, from the moment Daniel grabbed my arm during that meeting. It's not just jewelry anymore. It's evidence of everything that broke between us. Mr. Hale, my assistant Mia, calls softly from the door, holding a stack of papers. "The audit reports you requested. Set them on the desk," I reply. My voice sounds detached, not angry, just deliberate. She hesitates. "You sure you want to see what's inside?" "It's a lot. I've been blind long enough," I say. "Let's see what's been hiding under the rug." The air feels heavy, like the room itself is holding its breath. The faint hum of the air conditioner buzzes against the silence, the kind that only comes before bad news. Line by line, I go through the reports. Fake invoices, shell companies, payments to contractors who don't exist. Daniel's name shows up again and again, always near the biggest numbers. He's been siphoning money through a network of offshore accounts, all while pretending to be the golden son. I scroll through years of transactions until my jaw locks. The numbers form patterns, a rhythm of deceit. Every figure is a bruise, every signature a lie. A memory flashes Daniel laughing across the dinner table, saying, "You worry too much about the details, little brother." Now I see what he meant. Mia breaks the silence. "Should I notify legal?" "Not yet," I say. "We'll let him keep digging his own grave for a few more days." Her eyes flick up. "You sound calm." I've learned calm is what scares people the most. While I work, my phone buzzes, a message from my mother. "Dinner at home tomorrow. Let's talk like family." Family. The word makes my stomach twist. She still doesn't know I own the majority shares now, that I've been quietly buying them out through proxies. It's almost poetic. They cut me out of their circle, and I built my own empire behind theirs. For years, I begged for validation, for them to see me. Now, I'll make them visible. Every bribe, every forged document, every lie will have their name on it, projected under bright lights where they can't hide. But a small part of me still hesitates. This is my family, blood. Then I remember that meeting, Daniel's smirk, my father's dismissal, my mother's silence. The hesitation dies quietly inside me. Mia suddenly clears her throat. "Sir, there's something else." She holds out a sealed manila folder, thicker than the rest. "I found this in the shared archive. It's labeled Personal Daniel Hale." My eyes narrow. "Open it." She shakes her head. "You'll want to see it yourself." The file feels heavier than it should. The paper inside is warm, like it's been waiting. When I unclip the seal, A faint scent of cologne escapes, the same one Daniel always wore. Mia exhales. You'll want to see this. Your brother's been lying about more than money. Every lie unravels if you pull the right thread. The moment I open the folder, something inside me knows this isn't just about numbers anymore. The air feels heavier, like the room itself is waiting to see what I'll do next. I spread the contents across my desk: glossy photos, copies of emails, even a wedding certificate. The ink is faintly smudged, but one word slices through the paper like a knife: marriage, Daniel Hale, my brother. And the bride, Clara Vance. My throat tightens. Clara. The name drags a memory from years ago, her father shaking my hand at a corporate gala. The same man who tried to buy our company 5 years ago. My father laughed in his face. Now his daughter wears my family's name. Mia's voice trembles slightly. That's her, isn't it? The Vance heiress? I nod once. The one who swore she'd never step into our business again. Mia frowns. Daniel married her in secret? That's strategic. I interrupt. It's a merger disguised as love. The city hums below us, distant traffic, muted horns, a plane cutting across the night sky. But inside the office, it's silent. The kind of silence that tightens your jaw and makes your pulse echo in your ears. I scan the next few pages. Clara's company, Vance Holdings, has been quietly siphoning funds from ours through consulting agreements Daniel approved himself. Millions gone, masked as market partnerships. Every signature, every email chain, all traced back to Daniel. Not just corruption, betrayal with a wedding ring. I press my palm against the desk, trying to steady the tremor in my fingers. So that's why he laughed during that meeting. That's why my father sided with him, blind to what was really happening. He wasn't mocking me. He was distracting me. Mia breaks the silence again. Should we tell your father? I shake my head slowly. No, he wouldn't believe me. Not yet. Her brows knit together. You could ruin Daniel right now. That's not the point, I say quietly. He needs to believe he's safe first. Mia studies me carefully. You sound calm again. I almost smile. Because I finally understand how this ends. My phone buzzes with a new message, a calendar invite from my mother. Dinner confirmed for PM tomorrow. Daniel and Dad are excited to see you. The irony almost makes me laugh. Excited? They're walking straight into the storm they built with their own hands. I remember Daniel at 18, bragging that he could make anyone believe anything if he smiled the right way. I laughed back then. Now that same smirk could sink him, because this time, I'm the one smiling. Outside, lightning flickers faintly through the clouds, no thunder, just flashes of pale light washing over the desk. The silver bracelet on my wrist catches one glint and throws it back like a spark. A part of me whispers, he's still your brother. But blood doesn't excuse deceit. Not when it's calculated, deliberate, methodical. The same way my revenge will be. Not sudden, not emotional, surgical. Let him feel untouchable. Let him believe the walls he built are still standing until I pull one stone and everything caves in. Mia finally exhales. You scare me sometimes. Good, I say. That means it's working. I close the file carefully, aligning every edge. The paper feels warm under my fingertips, almost alive. Somewhere down the hall, the elevator dings, a hollow sound that echoes like a countdown. My phone rings. It's Daniel. Hey sis, he says casually. You still bitter about that meeting? Revenge is patience disguised as forgiveness. I sat across from Daniel in that restaurant, the kind of place with too much glass and not enough warmth. Every surface reflected something. Faces, forks, secrets. He had chosen it, of course. Public, neutral, safe, or so he thought. When he smiled, his teeth didn't quite match the emotion. The same grin he used when he lied as a kid, only sharper now. I wondered if he could feel the trap closing around him, or if arrogance really numbed a man that much. He lifted his menu. You still like the sea bass? He asked, pretending to remember. I forced a small smile. You still pretending to care? His laugh came too quickly. Still sharp, huh? Look, I didn't ask you here to argue. I thought maybe we could start over. Start over. Like years of betrayal could be rinsed clean between appetizers. Family unity, he continued, his voice smooth, almost rehearsed. We've both made mistakes. Mistakes? I repeated, stirring my drink. That's what you call draining half the company's assets into shell accounts. He froze, just for a second. His fork paused midair, hand tightening. Then, a smirk. You've been listening to rumors again. I leaned forward slightly, lowering my tone. You know what's funny? Every rumor I check ends up being true. Daniel chuckled, shaking his head. You never change. Always looking for villains, and you never stop playing the hero. He looked past me, scanning the room, typical Daniel, always assessing angles. I noticed the twitch in his jaw when I mentioned money, a small pulse near his temple. Meanwhile, under the table, my watch buzzed once, a short vibration, signal from my assistant, access granted. Behind the polite chatter and clinking glasses, my world was splitting open, not from guilt, but from revelation. On my wrist, the vibration came again, a rhythm matching my pulse. Each buzz meant another folder decrypted. He has no idea, I thought. While he's sipping wine, I'm dismantling his empire. The air smelled faintly of citrus and burnt butter. The sound of laughter from another table felt too loud to alive. Everything around me was ordinary, which somehow made the deceit sharper. Daniel raised his glass. To peace, he said, eyes narrowing. I met his toast, my reflection rippling in the red wine. To truth, he frowned at the word. Maybe it stung. Maybe he still believed he was untouchable. Come on, he said, lowering his voice. Whatever happened between us, it's just business. You took it too personally. I tilted my head. You married the heiress of our rival company and funneled funds through her father's accounts. He blinked, caught off guard, but the mask returned fast. Who told you that? No one. You just did. His composure cracked, just for a heartbeat, and that was enough. I'd spent months gathering evidence, piecing together his empire of lies. But seeing him react, that small flicker of panic, was better than any document. It wasn't satisfaction yet, just confirmation. The hunt was working. He recovered, leaning back. You've always had trust issues. Dad used to say you'd rather be right than happy. I smiled thinly. He was half right. What's that supposed to mean? Maybe you should ask him yourself. The restaurant light flickered, reflecting off the silver bracelet on my wrist, the same one Daniel broke years ago, now repaired, gleaming under the soft glow. His eyes lingered on it, a reminder of something he couldn't fix. My watch buzzed again, twice this time. Final upload complete. I set my napkin down gently. I should get back to work, I said, standing up. He smirked, confident again. Running away already? Just staying ahead. As I stepped outside, my phone buzzed, a text from my assistant. We found something about your father. The man I trusted most was selling me off like a business asset. The words on the screen didn't make sense at first. I read them once, twice, a third time, the ink on the scanned document blurring slightly as if my mind refused to register it. My father's signature, slanted, confident, unmistakable, sat neatly beside a clause that traded my future shares in the company for his debts. My life, packaged neatly in fine print. A warmth crawled up my throat, the kind that isn't tears or rage, something heavier. He'd called me his smartest daughter, the one he could count on. Now I understood what he really meant. Reliable collateral. For a moment, I didn't move. The office around me hummed quietly, the low buzz of the city beyond the glass, the steady tick of my watch, the faint sound of rain starting to hit the windows. Every tick was an accusation, every raindrop an echo of all the nights I defended him. I thought of the first time he took me to the company headquarters. I was 12, wearing a dress too formal for a child, holding his hand as he said, "Someday, this will all be yours." Apparently, yours had fine print, too. James, I said, my voice steady but low. When were these documents signed? There was a pause on the other end, the kind that stretches thin, about to snap. Ma'am, those records were sealed. You weren't supposed to see them. Answer the question. He sighed, paper rustling in the background. About 8 years ago, your father needed liquidity. He used your future inheritance as temporary collateral for a private loan. Temporary? My tone sharpened. Then why does it still exist? Because he never repaid it. The air around me felt colder. I stood, walking toward the window, the city lights shimmering through the mist. So I said slowly, if I hadn't found this, if I hadn't gone digging, what would have happened when he died? Another pause. Then a quiet confession. Legally, half your shares would have transferred to the lender's trust. You'd lose controlling interest. I let that sink in. 8 years of silence. 8 years of loyalty to a man who'd sold me off like a stock option. My voice came out calm to calm. Thank you, James. Forward me everything. Every page, every signature. Are you going to confront him? I smiled faintly, even though he couldn't see it. No, I'm going to teach him the value of silence. I ended the call and just stood there, watching the city blur behind the rain-streaked glass. The reflection staring back at me didn't look like a victim. It looked like someone finally seeing the board for what it was and realizing she'd been playing defense too long. The bracelet on my wrist glinted under the light, the one he'd broken during an argument years ago, back when I still sought his approval. I'd repaired it myself, a quiet reminder that what breaks can still return sharper. A gust of wind rattled the balcony door. I stepped outside. The air smelled like iron and wet asphalt. The skyline burned gold and blue beneath the clouds. The empire I built, brick by brick, while he gambled away his name. I wasn't shaking anymore. The anger had settled into something more dangerous, purpose. His voice still echoed in my mind, that tone he used when he wanted to sound fatherly but ended up sounding like a CEO in disguise. Sweetheart, business isn't personal. It's survival. Even now, I could picture his smile when he said it, calm, rational, rehearsed. The same smile he wore at my graduation when he told the crowd, "She's the future of our family." Future, right. A future he'd already mortgaged. Lightning flashed somewhere over the bay. White light spilling across the glass towers. The temperature dropped, the cold biting my skin, but it cleared my head. My phone screen reflected in the window, an image of my father and me at an old gala. We looked happy. I almost laughed. My inbox pinged documents received. I opened the folder. Scans, contracts, asset lists, and one memo from him. Handwritten.it read, "If she ever finds out, tell her it was for her own good." The handwriting shook slightly, not from guilt, but from age. The arrogance still bled through. My jaw tightened. My hand hovered over the delete key, then stopped. No, not yet. Part of me wanted to confront him. To drive to that mansion and throw the papers in his face. To scream the question that burned holes in my throat. Was I ever your daughter, or just another transaction? But the strategist in me whispered, not yet. Emotion is a weapon, but timing is the kill shot. The watch on my wrist ticked again, steady, patient, rhythmic. It reminded me of the plan I'd buried months ago, the one Daniel mocked as too paranoid, Project Mirror. Originally, it was meant for external threats. Now, it had a far more personal purpose. I walked back to my desk, opened my laptop, and drafted an email to the board. Subject, initiate Project Mirror effective immediately. My finger hovered over send. The storm outside roared louder, thunder shaking the glass, and I whispered to myself, barely audible over the wind, "Your move, father, to expose corruption. You don't fight the mirror, you make them look into it." I didn't sleep that night. Not because of guilt. Guilt had burned away months ago, but because silence had finally turned useful. Project Mirror wasn't revenge. It was reflection. A system designed to show people exactly what they'd become, stripped of illusion. The name came to me years ago during one of my father's lectures about transparency. He'd said, "In business, mirrors are dangerous, they show too much." He was right. That's why I built 1.by Dawn. The first line of code was already running through our internal audit server. Every ledger, hidden account, off-book payment, all being traced, recorded, time-stamped. The sound of rain tapping against my window matched the rhythm of my thoughts, cold, consistent, unrelenting. I sipped coffee that had gone bitter hours ago and watched the city wake below. The skyline didn't know it yet, but by tonight, the empire would begin to fracture. Everything in place? I asked, eyes on the monitor. Lena, my chief analyst, didn't look up. Yes, but you realize what this will do, right? Once the leaks start, there's no going back. That's the point. Her fingers froze mid-typing. You're turning your family's company into a target. I leaned forward, my voice barely above a whisper. No, Lena, I'm turning their lies into evidence. She glanced at me, hesitant, studying my expression. And your father? He taught me to finish what I start. Silence hung between us, not awkward, just heavy. The kind that fills a room when everyone knows a truth too big to name. The first leak was subtle, a redacted report sent anonymously to a financial blog. A whisper of instability. The second followed 2 hours later, a blurred spreadsheet hinting at discrepancies in executive accounts. By the third, journalists were calling it a silent storm brewing inside Harrington Holdings. I didn't respond to a single email or call. I just watched, because chaos reveals character. My father always said, control the narrative before someone else does. He never imagined the narrative would turn against him, written by his own daughter. The air smelled of metal and electricity that charged sent that comes before a lightning strike. Screens flickered, reflecting in my glasses like shards of light. I could hear the faint hum of the servers in the next room, the quiet heartbeat of betrayal turning into justice. Outside, traffic slowed as news tickers began flashing early reports. Harrington board under internal review sources suggest fraud investigation. I closed my eyes for a second and breathed it in the sound of exposure. It didn't feel triumphant. It felt inevitable. My phone vibrated. Mom. I hesitated before answering. Hello? Her voice cracked immediately. What are you doing? Your father's losing everything. The board is panicking. The banks are freezing accounts. Good, I said quietly. Don't say that. Her tone shifted from fear to pleading. You don't understand. He's sick. He needs stop. My hand trembled slightly, but my voice didn't. He needed honesty. He needed to remember that loyalty isn't a leash. You sound just like him, she whispered. That one stung not because she was right, but because she was close. Maybe, I said. But the difference is, when I destroy something, I have the courage to face it. Her silence lingered for a long time. Then softly, please, come home. Before it's too late. I almost laughed, but the sound died halfway. It's already too late, Mom. When the call ended, I didn't move. Her voice stayed in my ears like an echo that refused to fade. For a fleeting second, I wanted to undo everything, to stop the leaks, to silence the mirror before it cut too deep. But then I remembered the document with his signature, his careful handwriting, his choice. Mercy wasn't justice. It was just another lie. Across the city, my father's empire began to shake. Stocks dipped. Investors called emergency meetings. Journalists circled like vultures. Panic had a sound, a low buzz of unanswered phones and rapid footsteps in marble corridors. I watched the chaos unfold from my office window, the glass reflecting my face over the city lights, a literal mirror. For the first time, I didn't look like his daughter. I looked like my own person. The repaired bracelet on my wrist caught the light again. A reminder, once broken, never fragile. A new email notification blinked at the corner of my screen. No sender, no subject. I clicked it. Stop this, or you'll regret it. The cursor blinked under the threat, waiting. And somewhere deep in me, something darker than fear began to smile. When the ones who broke you start feeling cornered, they bite back. The message came at 2:47 a.m. Just one line. Stop this, or you'll regret it. No sender name. Just a shadow of an address. Clara, Daniel Corp, private. For a second, I thought it was a joke. Then the realization crawled up my spine like a slow electric current. Clara, Daniel's secret wife. The woman I'd exposed by accident months ago when everything started unraveling. My fingers hovered above the keyboard. I didn't respond right away. I wanted to feel that silent stretch, to imagine her waiting, pacing, doubting her own courage. Instead, I forwarded the message to my cybersecurity lead. Naveen, trace it. Don't reply yet. I typed. He called me 10 minutes later, his voice steady but laced with unease. Sir, it's her. Message bounced from a private offshore network. Expensive encryption. She's serious. I exhaled through my nose. The night air felt heavy, pressing against the window glass. Let her be serious, I said quietly. She's bluffing. But was she? 2 hours later, my parents called the 5th time that night. I stared at their name flashing on the screen. Home. I didn't pick up. Not yet. Mom's earlier message played in my head. Your father's losing everything. Please, stop whatever this is. You've made your point. No, I hadn't. Not yet. Their empire wasn't collapsing because of me, it was collapsing because of their own rot finally surfacing. Project Mirror was working exactly as I designed it, truth disguised as coincidence, but Clara's message lingered. A thorn I couldn't ignore. Later that morning, Naveen called again. We found something else, he said. She didn't just send that threat. She uploaded a small file to a hidden cloud server. We can't access it yet, encrypted, but labeled with your full name. I felt my pulse tighten in my wrists. My name? Yes. First, middle, last. And the timestamp matches your birth year. Silence filled the office. Even the hum of the air conditioning felt louder. I turned toward the window, watching the reflection of my own face in the glass. There was no anger, just that quiet, eerie calm before realization hits. What could Clara possibly have that tied to me? She was Daniel's wife, not mine. Keep digging, I said. And don't touch the file yet. I want to see how far she's willing to go. By noon, Rumors about my family's company were spreading across every major finance blog. Headlines screamed internal audit leak suggests financial instability. Dad's voice messages turned frantic. You're making a mistake, son. We can fix this together. Don't ruin your own name with ours. I laughed quietly at the irony. My name, the one they used only when it was convenient. Each voicemail was shorter, more desperate, and every one of them ended with the same trembling word, please, but I didn't respond. Not out of cruelty, out of closure. They'd taught me that silence is weakness. Now I was teaching them its power. Around PM, my phone buzzed again. Naveen's number. He sounded uneasy this time. Sir, you should see this. What did you find? It's the file Clara hinted at. We cracked the outer encryption. It's not financial. It's personal. Send it. Seconds later, an email popped up, confidential. Private record sealed. I opened it slowly, line by line. Department of Family Welfare Adoption Record. Name. Redacted child. My full name for a heartbeat. Everything stopped. The screen glow. The faint hum of the city below. Even my own breathing. The truth stared back. Indifferent and cruel. I wasn't their son. Not by blood. Not by birth. A knock on my door startled me. It was Naveen again, his voice hesitant through the crack. Sir, are you okay? Yes, I lied, my tone steady. Everything's finally starting to make sense. I closed the file and leaned back, feeling the faint tremor in my hands. Clara's message replayed in my mind. Stop this, or you'll regret it. She was right about one thing. I'd regret it. Not because of what I'd done, but because now, I understood exactly what I'd been avenging all along. That night, another message appeared, a single attachment with no text, no sender, and one haunting file name, your real father, MP4. Turns out, the biggest lie in this family was me. I stared at the adoption file until the letters blurred into static. My full name sat there like a stranger's, printed neatly under a seal that meant nothing anymore. Child, my name. Biological parents, deceased. Adoptive guardians, Charles and Margaret Shaw. The words didn't scream. They didn't accuse. They just existed, quiet and cruel. All my life, I thought the distance between us was emotional. Turns out, it was blood deep. For years, I'd tried to earn their approval, the way Dad's jaw tightened every time I spoke, the way Mom's smile cracked when I made eye contact. I thought it was me, my tone, my choices. But no, it was biology. It was a contract, a lie disguised as love. I sat on the cold marble floor, file open across my knees. Outside, the city hummed, indifferent to the collapse of my world. You were never one of us, Dad had once said in anger. Back then, I thought it was just words, a cruel slip. Now I knew it was truth dressed as rage. Every act of kindness, every punishment, every silent dinner, all of it calculated to keep the family image intact. And I was the insurance policy. The report said I'd been adopted after a business associate's accident. No names, just a date. 28 years ago, the same year my father inherited his company. I heard footsteps. Naveen again, hesitant at the doorway. He didn't speak at first, just watched me, unsure if stepping closer might set something off. Naveen, sir, do you want me to delete the file? Me, delete it? I almost laughed. A dry, empty sound. Me, no, Naveen. I want it framed. He blinked, uncertain if I was serious. Me. This piece of paper, I continued, lifting it, explains everything. The silence, the expectations, the guilt they wrapped around my neck like a leash. He shifted his weight. His hands were buried in his pockets. Nervous habit. Naveen, what are you going to do? Me, end it. Naveen, end what? Me, the illusion. Inside, something shifted. The grief that had cracked me open an hour ago hardened into something sharper. Cold, clean, clarity. My phone buzzed again. Mom. I let it ring. Her photo flashed, the same smile she used to wear at charity galas, all polished warmth and hollow pride. Decline. Another ring. Dad this time. Then a message. We need to talk, urgently. There are things you don't understand. I stared at the words, thumb hovering above reply. Then I typed, I understand enough, and sent it. The office felt different now, to bright to quiet. The hum of the ceiling fan sounded like static in my skull. Even the air had changed, colder, heavier, as if the walls themselves were holding their breath. In that silence, I replayed every memory like evidence in a trial. The birthdays they forgot, the praise they reserved for my sister, The day Dad said, "You should be grateful we took you in." Grateful. Like I was some broken thing they'd rescued, not a child they'd manufactured into a mask for their greed. I pulled myself up slowly, the marble floor icy beneath my palms. Grief didn't just fade, it metamorphosed. By the time I stood, sorrow had turned into precision. I walked to the mirror across the room, same reflection, different man. For the first time, I saw it, the absence, not of family, of illusion. Me quietly, "You made this monster." The words slipped out, almost a whisper, but they felt right. Final. Naveen was still watching me. "Naveen, sir? What now?" "Me. Now." I turned, eyes dry, voice steady. "Me. Now we play my favorite game, truth." He hesitated. "Naveen, what do you want me to do?" "Me. Call the board. And the PR team. Schedule a press briefing for Monday." He frowned. "Naveen, should I prepare a statement?" "Me. Yes. Headline it, 'Inheritance Fraud Uncovered.'" He froze, then nodded slowly. Naveen understood. As he left, I sat behind the desk again, my father's old seat. For the first time, it didn't feel borrowed. The city outside was bleeding into dusk, streetlights flickering awake, sirens weaving through the distance. I reached for the phone, feeling the faint tremor return to my fingers. Not fear this time, just control sharpening into intent. Me to assistant. Schedule a family meeting. A pause. Assistant. For when, sir? Me. Tomorrow evening. Assistant. Under what name should I list it? I looked down at the adoption file one last time. The signature at the bottom, Evelyn Shaw, a name I'd never seen before, yet somehow belonged to me more than any they'd given. Me softly. "List it under Evelyn Shaw." Assistant. Understood. "Anything else?" Me. "Yes." I exhaled slowly, the calm before the storm returning. Me. "Tell them I think it's time they meet her." Tomorrow, they'd walk into that meeting expecting their obedient son. Instead, they'd meet the truth they created and named Evelyn Shaw. The last time they saw me, they kicked me out. This time, I owned the building. I stood in the marble lobby of Elysium headquarters, staring at the golden logo glinting off the glass wall. My reflection looked like a stranger, polished, composed, unrecognizable from the person they once humiliated. My hand brushed against the old bracelet on my wrist, its cracked charm pressing into my skin like memory itself. The elevator doors opened with a soft chime. I stepped in, alone. Each floor that passed felt like another layer of the past peeling off until only the fury remained underneath. When the doors slid open at the top floor, the air changed, cold, filtered, sterile. My mother's laugh used to echo through places like this, soft, performative, carefully measured to please whoever held the checkbook. Now, that same laugh was waiting for me behind a boardroom door. I pushed it open. The first face I saw was Daniel's. His jaw tightened, but his eyes widened just a fraction before he masked it with a smirk. My father was at the head of the table, hands steepled, pretending authority. My mother sat beside him, her hand clutching her pearls like a rosary. "Evelyn?" my father said, rising halfway. "What the hell, what are you doing here?" I slipped off my sunglasses, met his stare, and smiled thin and controlled. "Surprise." The word fell like a blade. Silence followed, the kind that made air feel heavy. "I thought we were meeting someone from Elysium's rescue division," Daniel said. His voice cracked slightly. "You're saying I'm the division," I interrupted. "Technically, I'm the majority shareholder now." Their expressions collapsed in slow motion. I laid the folder on the table. "These are the documents you'll need to sign if you want to keep your names off the official bankruptcy filings. The same company you drained to fund your little private paradise now belongs to me." My mother's lip trembled. "You can't do this. We're family." Family. The word curdled in my stomach. "I remember," I said quietly. "Family doesn't throw you out into the rain with nothing but a backpack and bruises. Family doesn't pretend you don't exist when you beg for help." Her mascara shimmered under the boardroom lights. "We thought, no," I cut in. "You didn't think. You calculated." Daniel shifted in his seat, trying to regain balance. "Look, Evelyn, whatever this is, let's not pretend you didn't want power all along. You're just like him." I turned my gaze on him. "You mean the man who taught you how to forge signatures? Or the man who tried to sell the company's assets under your sister's name?" The color drained from his face. My father slammed his hand against the table. The sound cracked through the room. "Enough. You wouldn't dare destroy your own family over some grudge." I leaned forward, slowly, calmly. "Grudge?" My voice stayed even, but I could feel the tremor beneath it. You call years of manipulation and lies a grudge? He stared back, chest rising fast. You wouldn't dare. That's when I slid the final document across the table, a photo stapled to it. The offshore accounts. His name, his signature. My proof. I already did, I whispered. The silence that followed was surgical, clean, precise, cutting through everything unspoken. The only sound was the soft hum of the air vents, like a restrained heartbeat. My mother reached for the papers, trembling. Evelyn, please, this isn't you. I met her eyes, and for a second, I almost believed her. Almost. Then I remembered the cold nights, the phone calls unanswered, the years of being invisible. No, I said, standing. This is exactly who I became because of you. Daniel muttered something under his breath, something like, you regret this, but it was drowned out by the rustle of legal pages. I gathered my folder, straightened my jacket, and glanced at the old bracelet again. One of its beads had cracked completely now, splitting down the middle. Funny, I said, almost to myself. Everything breaks eventually, even family. I turned toward the door. Behind me, my father's voice rose, trembling not from power, but from fear he refused to admit. You wouldn't dare destroy your own family, he repeated, softer this time. I paused at the threshold, then I looked back, and for the first time, let a flicker of emotion surface in my voice. I'm not destroying it, I said. I'm finally freeing myself from it. The door closed behind me with a whisper that felt louder than any scream. Behind that door, my father's final words echoed, part threat, part plea. You wouldn't dare destroy your own family. But the thing about dare is that I already had. Silence has a sound, and in that moment, it was deafening. The room was still the same, sterile white lights, glossy table, the faint hum of the AC that couldn't mask the tension hanging like smoke. My father was still sitting where I left him, his hand frozen midair. The echo of his last words, you wouldn't dare destroy your own family, still clinging to the air like the scent of spilled whiskey. I didn't sit this time. I wanted him to look up at me, to really see me. You always thought I wouldn't dare, I said quietly. My voice didn't rise, it didn't need to. It had the calmness of someone who had already decided what happens next. You built this family on fear, not loyalty. You mistook silence for obedience, he scoffed, the sound brittle. You think money gives you power? You think that running a company makes you a leader? No, I replied, stepping closer. But knowing exactly how you crumble, that's power. He flinched, almost imperceptibly. Maybe it was the way I said it. Maybe it was the realization that every piece of his empire, every supplier, investor, contract was now under my signature. You're bluffing, he said, voice tightening. You don't have the guts to pull the trigger on your own blood. I leaned against the table, lowering my tone until it was barely above a whisper. You don't understand. I already did. His eyes snapped to mine, confusion flickering before morphing into dawning terror. I slid the folder across the table, thick, bound, precise. He hesitated before opening it. Inside were copies of every decision I'd made over the last year, the quiet withdrawals, the silent takeovers, the clause transfers he never read. His signature was on most of them. His own pen had signed away his kingdom. He scanned the pages, hands trembling. You tricked me. No, I said evenly. I learned from you. You taught me to manipulate trust. You just never thought I'd use your lessons better than you did. He slammed the folder shut, the sound sharp in the sterile quiet. You think this makes you better than me? You think destroying your family makes you strong? I didn't answer. I just looked at him. Really looked at him, the man who once told me I'd never amount to anything, that I was too emotional to lead, too soft to survive, and now he was the one trembling. I turned slightly, catching my reflection in the glass wall. My face was calm, expressionless, but my hands were clenched so tight the blood had left my knuckles white. I wanted to scream, to cry, to ask him why. But those words would have been for the daughter he broke years ago. She was gone. You wanted obedience, I said quietly. What you got was evolution. He laughed suddenly, a bitter, hollow sound. You think they'll love you for this? Your brothers, your mother? You just turned into me. The words hit like a slap, not because they were true, but because part of me feared they could be. I stayed still, letting the weight of them hang between us. Maybe he saw something in my face, a flicker of hesitation, because his smirk returned. You're not built for this world, girl. You can buy it, but you'll never belong in it. I met his gaze and said softly, maybe not, but it belongs to me now. His smile faltered, for the first time. my father looked small. Not because of what he'd lost, but because he finally saw what I'd become. The silence stretched, heavy and suffocating. The air conditioning clicked louder, like it was straining to fill the space his pride once did. Then slowly, he reached into his jacket and slid a folded envelope across the table. "If you think you've won," he murmured, "read this first." I didn't touch it. He stood, his voice lower now but steady, controlled. "You think you've seen everything. But you haven't even begun to understand what this family really built on." The air went cold. He brushed past me, the faint scent of his cologne trailing after him like an omen. The door closed softly behind him, the latch clicking like a gun cocking in slow motion. I stared at the envelope. My pulse was calm to calm. I told myself it didn't matter, that it was another manipulation, another test. But a part of me knew better. There was something inside that letter I wasn't ready to face. The paper felt warm in my hand, like it had been waiting for years to burn me alive. Revenge doesn't end when the truth comes out. It begins there. The first headline hit like a gunshot. Shaw Enterprises under investigation. Fraud, embezzlement, internal collapse. By noon, every channel, every screen carried our name. My name. My father's face was plastered everywhere, grainy photos of him leaving a building. Sunglasses failing to hide the exhaustion in his eyes. The world had finally caught up to what I'd been waiting for. I sat on the edge of my couch, the skyline of the city glowing behind me, gold fading into steel blue. The air felt too still, like it was holding its breath with me. My phone wouldn't stop vibrating. Reporters, investors, concerned friends. Then Daniel's name flashed across the screen. I almost didn't answer. Almost. Evelyn. His voice was rough, stripped of its arrogance. "You did this." "I didn't write your emails. I didn't forge your numbers," I said quietly. "You did that all by yourself. You think this clears you?" He spat. "You think you're better than us now?" The sound of his breathing filled the silence. Shallow, erratic. I could picture him pacing, rubbing his temples, pretending to control what he'd already lost. "I don't think I'm better," I said. "Just free." He laughed, but it cracked halfway through. "You'll regret this, Evelyn. When the cameras turn on you, when they start asking how you knew, they'll destroy you too." His words should have scared me. Instead, they sounded hollow, like the last trick of a magician whose hands were already shaking. I ended the call without a word, for a moment. The quiet that followed was too clean, artificial, like the silence before a storm starts again. By evening, I received a message from a journalist. "Evelyn Shaw, would you like to issue a statement?" I typed a response, no comment, then deleted it. They wanted outrage, confession, guilt, something to fill their headlines. But I'd learned that silence can be the loudest answer. I spent the night walking through my penthouse. Every sound echoed: the soft hum of the refrigerator, the faint ticking of a wall clock, the city's muffled heartbeat below. There was peace here, but it was the kind that tasted like smoke after fire. I paused by the mirror in the hallway. My reflection looked calm, almost serene, but my eyes gave me away. There was something fractured there. Something that had watched everything burn and still wasn't sure it was enough. The lights from the skyline flickered across my face, slicing the room into cold and warm halves. That's when my phone buzzed again. It wasn't a message this time, just a single photo. Clara, sitting in her car, head in her hands. The caption read, "She blames you." I stared at the screen until it went dark. Maybe she was right. Maybe I was to blame, not for their corruption, but for surviving it. For walking away when I could have chosen mercy. But mercy was a luxury they'd never given me. Sometime past midnight, a knock echoed through the apartment. Sharp, precise. I froze. Through the peephole, nothing. The hallway was empty, except for a single brown package resting neatly against the doorframe. No delivery tag. No return address. I hesitated before picking it up. It was heavier than I expected, the cardboard cool against my hands. Inside was a small black velvet box. My chest tightened as soon as I saw it. I didn't need to open it to know what was inside. Still, my fingers moved on their own. The lid lifted with a faint creak, and there it was, my family bracelet, the same one that had snapped the night they kicked me out of that meeting. Only now, it was perfectly repaired, every link polished, every charm restored. A note sat beneath it, just a single line, written in the same handwriting I'd seen on 1,000 old birthday cards. Families break, but they can be rebuilt, piece by piece. No signature, just the faint scent of cologne clinging to the paper. I sank into the couch, the bracelet resting in my palm. My mind replayed every moment, every word, every betrayal, every victory until all of it blurred into one heavy truth. Revenge had cost me everything that used to make me human. The bracelet's clasp clicked shut around my wrist, and for the first time in weeks, I realized I wasn't alone in the apartment. Some ghosts don't haunt. They negotiate. The bracelet still clung to my wrist, its metal warmer than skin. When I lifted the velvet box again, I noticed the false bottom, a thin slit of cardboard that flexed under my thumb. Beneath it, folded twice and sealed with wax, waited a letter that smelled faintly of lavender and dust. My breath tightened. Lavender, my mother's perfume. The handwriting trembled across the page, soft loops, rushed edges, as if she'd written it with shaking hands. My dearest Evelyn, if you're reading this, it means everything has already fallen apart. I sank back into the couch, the city still flickering through the window behind me. For a moment, I didn't read. I just listened to the clock ticking, to my own heartbeat, to the hollow quiet that comes after every war. You were never supposed to know about the adoption. Your father insisted we keep it buried. I tried to fight him once, but I lost that argument the way I lost you, slowly, painfully, without realizing it was happening. I read the words twice. My eyes burned, not with tears, but with the kind of anger that hums too low for sound. He made a deal, Evelyn. Years before you were born. The company's first major contract, the one that saved Shaw Enterprises. It wasn't business. It was personal. You were the payment. The room seemed to shrink around me. My fingers clenched the paper until it crackled. I could almost hear her voice, soft, apologetic, rehearsed from years of guilt. I did it for us, she'd say if she were here. You wouldn't understand how dangerous he was. Dangerous? I whispered to the empty room. You stood beside him while he destroyed me. My phone buzzed again, another message from Daniel, or maybe the press. I didn't look. My mother's voice on the page was louder than anything in the real world. You were never meant to pay for our mistakes. I tried to protect you the only way I could, by keeping you in the dark. I laughed under my breath. Darkness isn't protection, Mom. It's complicity. The paper shook in my hands. My pulse thudded behind my eyes. The bracelet. It was my idea. Each charm represents a promise I couldn't keep. I repaired it myself before sending this, because I wanted you to remember me, not just hate me. I stared at the tiny charms, a heart, a key, a small silver feather. For the first time, they looked less like symbols and more like evidence, proof of how love can disguise surrender. A knock echoed faintly from somewhere in the hallway. My entire body went still. Silence stretched. No second knock. Just the hum of the refrigerator and the faint hiss of the city outside. I turned back to the letter, forcing my focus. I know you'll never forgive me. I can't ask you to. But if you can, please remember that I loved you in my own cowardly way. My throat tightened. I wanted to hate every word, but that scent of lavender twisted the knife. It dragged me back to childhood, bedtime stories, lullabies that ended too soon. Her hands trembling when she brushed my hair. I whispered, "You loved me enough to sell me," then folded the page halfway closed, but a line near the bottom caught my eye. You think revenge ends it all, but it doesn't. It only changes who holds the knife. I froze. That wasn't her voice anymore. The handwriting shifted, firmer, cleaner. A different pen. I unfolded the last crease. He knows where you live now. For a heartbeat, everything stopped, even the air. Then I felt it, a faint vibration beneath the floorboards, like footsteps or distant machinery. My reflection in the window darkened as the city lights flickered. Someone had cut the power to the hallway outside. The lavender scent grew stronger, not from the letter anymore, but from the open door behind me. I turned slowly toward the doorway, the repaired bracelet glinting under the dying light, and realized the lavender wasn't perfume at all. It was gas. The past doesn't die quietly, it kicks down your door. The alarm split the night in half, a shriek that carved straight through my sleep. For a second, I didn't move. I just lay there, staring at the ceiling, pulse hammering behind my ribs. Then came the sound that didn't belong, glass shattering in the hallway. I grabbed the flashlight from my drawer, its beam trembling across the floor as I stepped into the dark. The house smelled faintly of smoke and metal, old fear waking up. Security. I whispered into the intercom, but static answered back. No voice, no confirmation, just the low hum of something wrong. Then footsteps. Slow, deliberate, uneven. Who's there? My voice cracked once, then steadied. You picked the wrong house. A shadow staggered into the beam of light. And my stomach turned cold. Daniel. His shirt was untucked, his tie loose, eyes red and wild. A half-empty bottle clinked against the floor when he dropped it. Evelyn, he slurred, voice rough and shaking. You ruined everything. Me. Get out. You're drunk. Daniel, you think this? He waved around the room. Almost losing balance makes you clean? That letter? That story you told? You think you're some tragic hero now? Me. I didn't have to tell a story, Daniel. The truth told itself. Daniel. No, you spun it. Like you always do. He laughed, but it cracked halfway through, more sob than sound. Daniel, you took everything. The company, the sympathy, even her memory. Me. She destroyed her own memory the day she stayed silent. He kicked the broken glass, shards scattering like tiny stars. The flashlight's beam caught his face, pale, trembling, rage breaking through the last layer of arrogance. Daniel, I covered for you. I lied for you. And this is how you repay me. Me. You covered for yourself. Don't rewrite the past just because you're finally sober enough to see it. He moved closer. The smell of whiskey burned the air. Daniel, you think I won't hit you? Me. Calmly, no, I think you already did years ago. You just used words instead of fists. Cinematic cue. The lamp beside us toppled when he lunged, light burst. Glass rained down. The bracelet on my wrist caught the flicker as I stepped back. For a moment, all I could see was the silver glint, the same one I'd stared at when the letter warned he knows where you live now. He screamed, a sound halfway between grief and fury. Then hands. Not his. Security. 2 guards, storming in, slamming him to the floor. Daniel's voice broke as they pinned him, the fight draining from his body all at once. Daniel, she was our mother. Me. She was a coward. Daniel, you don't get to say that. Me. I earned the right when I survived her silence. He tried to lift his head, face streaked with tears and blood. Daniel, you think this is over? Clara isn't done. The name hit like ice water. Clara, the assistant who'd disappeared 2 weeks ago. The one who'd always hovered near my mother's old office. I stared down at him as they dragged him toward the door. His words echoing in the broken glass and cold air. At me quietly. Then tell Clara to knock next time. The guards pulled him away. The door slammed. The alarm finally stopped. Description, inner thoughts. The silence that followed wasn't peace. It was pressure. My hands shook as I set the flashlight down. The smell of dust and spilled liquor hung heavy. The bracelet felt heavier again, like it was pulling me backward, into everything I hadn't yet uncovered. Daniel's warning lingered, louder than the alarm had ever been. I bent down to pick up a shard of glass and saw, reflected in it, a red blinking light from the corner of the room. A recording device. Still on. You think revenge tastes sweet, until you realize it burns going down. Clara didn't come quietly. She came like a storm that remembered every slight, every whispered insult. Every time they'd called her too emotional or not worth listening to. The boardroom smelled like power leather chairs, fake smiles, and expensive perfume trying to mask fear. My fear, her fear, everyone's. She stepped inside, heels clicking against marble like gunfire. No security tried to stop her. Maybe because they'd already been paid to look the other way. Or maybe because Clara didn't look like a threat. Not until you saw her eyes. I thought you said she was done, one of the partners whispered. Oh, I am, Clara said, voice smooth as glass. Done pretending. She dropped a stack of folders onto the table. It hit like thunder. Pages spilled, photos, contracts, email chains, every dirty secret the family thought they'd buried. Dad's fake accounts. My brother's illegal deals. My mother's stolen trust fund donations. All of it, printed in color. And then she looked at me. That calm, terrifying kind of look. Evelyn, did you really think you were the only one who could play this game? I felt something inside me twist, not fear. Something colder. Something that had been waiting to wake up. You're not doing this, I said, standing, but my voice didn't sound like mine. You don't know what you're, don't I? She cut in. You made your move. You wanted them to see your power. I just want them to see your truth. The screen behind her flickered to life, video footage. My private confrontation with Dad. The moment I'd confessed that I own everything. The moment I'd said, I built this company to destroy you. They gasped. And suddenly, all eyes turned to me. The family that had ignored me my whole life now stared at me like I was a monster. And maybe I was. Clara's voice trembled, not from weakness, but from control barely held together. You used me. You used all of us. But you forgot one thing, Evelyn. Revenge doesn't end when you say it does. The room erupted shouting. Chaos, security rushing in too late. I just stood there, frozen, watching the empire I built crack apart like glass under heat, and through it all, Clara smiled. Not the sweet, nervous smile she once had, but something sharper, something earned. When the guards pulled her out, she didn't fight. She just whispered to me as she passed close enough for no one else to hear, "Check your inbox." Then she was gone. I sat down, shaking. Everyone yelled, demanded answers, accused me of betrayal, but I couldn't hear them. The only sound in my head was Claire's voice. I opened my laptop. One new email. No subject line. Just a video attachment. I clicked play and my stomach turned to ice. It wasn't her alone. It was them. Every person I thought I'd silenced. Every pawn I'd used in my quiet war sitting beside her. Smiling into the camera, Claire's voice came through. Steady, calm, merciless. You built an empire to watch them fall. Now watch what happens when they rise. The screen went black, and then the lights in the building flickered. We found her, my assistant whispered, eyes wide. But she's not alone. To end the game, I had to become everything they feared. For weeks, I'd planned this moment down to the heartbeat. Every lie, every fake document, every sleepless night, each one led here. I told myself this wasn't revenge anymore. It was closure. But when the cold air from the warehouse vents brushed my skin, I realized closure was just another kind of war. I could almost taste the metal in the air, iron and dust, mixed with that faint chemical scent of freshly wiped floors. The kind of smell that says nothing stays hidden here for long. Security tech whispering, all cams rolling. She's 3 minutes out. I nodded, eyes fixed on the single chair in the center of the room, my stage prop, my confession booth, my revenge. A single light hung above it, flickering once, like it sensed what was coming. My bracelet, the same one Clara once mocked as cheap sentimentality, pressed cold against my wrist. Now it carried the tiny recording chip that would end her career, her leverage, her mask. Me thinking, this is it, Evelyn. No screaming, no speeches, just the truth, caught on film. The metal door creaked, heels clicked, and then she was there. Clara, still polished, still confident, at least until her eyes adjusted to the light and landed on me. Clara, voice tight. You? I didn't answer. Silence is a weapon. I'd learned that from her. She set her bag down carefully, like she thought this was business as usual. Where's the buyer? I leaned forward, letting the light hit my face. You're looking at her. Her breath hitched. A beat of silence stretched between us, heavy enough to bend the air. Clara, you set me up. Me. No, Clara, you set yourself up. I just gave you a mirror. She laughed, a dry, broken sound. You think this clears you? You think you can just erase what you did? I didn't respond. I wanted her to keep talking, to drown herself in her own words. The red light of the hidden camera blinked once, steady and patient. Clara, mocking. You used everyone, your family, me, the company. You're no better. Her fingers twitched. The manicured, calm cracked. Sweat gleamed at her temple, though the air was cold. Her mask slipped piece by piece, and the woman beneath wasn't powerful, she was desperate. Me quietly. Tell them that. Tell the whole world. She followed my gaze and saw the small lens behind the hanging bulb. Her face drained of color. Clara, you recorded this? Me. No, Clara, you did. I slid her own flash drive across the table, the one she'd used to steal from me. It was empty now, overridden with tonight's confession. She lunged for it, voice trembling. You don't understand, me cutting in. I understand perfectly. You taught me. The sound of boots echoed the police team I'd tipped off. Blue lights washed over the room through the warehouse glass. Clara froze, eyes darting between me and the approaching shadows. Officer calm. Clara Mendez. You're under arrest for fraud, extortion, and corporate theft. Her voice broke as they read her rights. Evelyn, wait please. We can fix this. I stood, pulse steady for the first time in years. Fixing it was never your specialty. She screamed as they pulled her out. The sound echoed long after the door slammed shut. Hours later, I watched the footage air on every network. Her confession looped, headlines blazing. Whistleblower exposes $900 million scandal, owner revealed as victim, not villain. The public cheered. The company's stocks surged. And my name, Evelyn Ward, finally meant something other than the forgotten one. But in the quiet of my office, with city lights bleeding through the blinds, I couldn't celebrate. Justice felt heavy, like I'd traded one cage for another. The bracelet glinted under the desk lamp. A reminder that power doesn't heal, it isolates. When I walked to my door that night, an envelope lay on the floor. No address, no markings, just my name typed. I picked it up, the paper thick and cold. Inside, one line in Clara's handwriting. You won the game, Evelyn. But the players aren't all gone. The light flickered once and then went out. End of story, but not the end of peace. Revenge gives closure, but karma leaves a scar. The office was quiet again. Too quiet, the kind that doesn't bring peace, only echoes. My hands trembled slightly as I unsealed the envelope, its edges rough like it had traveled too far and waited too long to be opened. Inside, a single photograph slid out, glossy, old, almost fragile. It was me, barely a year old, wrapped in a white blanket, smiling up at someone who wasn't my mother. The woman's face was soft but unfamiliar. Her hair fell over one shoulder, and around her wrist was the same bracelet I'd just received that morning. The same worn silver, the same faint scratch near the clasp. My breath snagged in my throat. No, I whispered, tracing the curve of her hand in the picture. This can't be. The back of the photo held only a single sentence. You've only met half your family. For a moment, everything in me went silent. The noise of the city faded beyond the glass, replaced by the slow thud of my heartbeat. The vengeance, the fire that had driven me for months, all of it shrank beneath that one line. What does that even mean? I murmured, flipping the photo over again, scanning every corner for some sign, a date, a name, anything. Nothing. Just that bracelet. Just that smile. Daniel's voice echoed faintly from my memory. Some secrets wait years to be told. Maybe this was one of them. Maybe revenge hadn't ended the story. Maybe it had only cleared the smoke so I could finally see what was underneath. I felt the urge to call someone, anyone, but who? Everyone I'd once trusted was either gone, exposed, or destroyed. The silence in my penthouse pressed down on me until I could hear the faint buzz of the city below, like static through glass. Then, a sound. A soft ding. An email notification. I froze. The subject line glowed like a warning light. Hello, sister. We need to talk. My pulse hammered against my ribs. The sender's name was blank, no profile photo, no address I recognized. Just that one word, sister. The cursor blinked, waiting. For the first time in months, I wasn't angry. I wasn't even afraid. I was something worse, curious. If this was another trap, I'd walk into it, calmly, deliberately, because this time, I wanted answers more than revenge. My reflection stared back from the glass window, eyes older, colder. The city lights shimmered below like a million secrets waiting to surface. I turned the bracelet around my wrist, its metal cool against my skin, and whispered to the empty room, let's finish what you started. A new email pings again, this time with a video attachment titled, The Night You Were Taken. The storm had passed days ago, but the city still smelled like rain and old smoke. From my window, I could see the skyline bleeding into dusk, gold fading into ash. That's how it always ends, doesn't it? Beautiful, but never clean. I hadn't slept in 3 nights. Not because I was afraid, because silence is louder when you finally won. The bracelet sat on my desk, exactly where I left it. The silver had dulled, and one of the links was cracked just enough to catch the light whenever I moved. It used to be a reminder of betrayal. Now, it was proof that even the strongest bonds break eventually. Daniel once told me, revenge is a mirror stared too long, and you stop seeing who you were. He was right. I didn't see myself anymore, just the reflection of someone who survived. The email still sat open on my laptop. Hello, sister. We need to talk. No name, no trace, just a voice from the void, waiting for an answer. I hadn't replied, not yet, because I wasn't ready to start another war. Not until I knew what the last one had truly cost me. I poured another glass of wine, my hands steady now, almost as steady. The same calm I used to fake in boardrooms I now carried like armor, controlled, composed, dangerous. The phone buzzed once on the table. Unknown number. I stared at it for a long time, the screen lighting up the dark room. Then it stopped. No voicemail, just silence again. Maybe that was mercy. I leaned back, letting the city hum beneath me. There was no applause after revenge, no music, just breathing, your own, shallow and real. I thought of my mother's voice, faint and fading with time. Some secrets wait years to be told. Maybe this was her secret. Maybe the woman in the photo, the one with my face and the bracelet, was her twin. Or maybe my entire life had been someone else's punishment playing out in circles. I picked up the bracelet. The metal was cool, almost kind. I turned it over and saw the engraving for the first time. Faint letters hidden inside the clasp. For C. You were never supposed to find out. My chest tightened. I didn't cry. I couldn't. Tears belong to the weak, and weakness is what got us here in the first place. Still, something inside me cracked. Not loud, not visible, but deep. A shadow passed over the window, a reflection that wasn't mine. I turned fast, but the room was empty, only my own outline staring back. For a second, I thought I heard footsteps in the hallway. Slow, careful, then nothing. Maybe imagination, maybe not. I set the bracelet back down, this time face up, letting the engraving show. A reminder, a warning, a scar. They think revenge ends with fire and blood. It doesn't. It ends like this, in silence, in an empty room, with a message you're too afraid to answer. The laptop chimed again. A new message. This time, no subject line, just a single video thumbnail. I hovered over it, my finger trembling slightly, not with fear, but with anticipation. Because the truth isn't done with me yet. It never is. The play button flickered, waiting, and for a moment, I saw my own reflection over the frozen frame. Eyes calm, mouth steady, heart still burning beneath the surface. Let's finish this, I whispered, pressing play.